John Marshall, Dennis v. United States Court Case by Katie Miller and Aidan Gill. John Marshall, early life. Born on September 24th, 1755, in Germantown, Virginia. First of 15 children born. Marshall was mainly homeschooled as a young kid. Career life. He served as a lieutenant and then a captain in the Continental Army during the Revolutionary War. He spent the winter of 1778 to 1779 with his troops in Valley Forge. In 1781, he resigned from the military and decided to study law at William and Mary College. In 1788, he took a leading part in the Virginia Convention called to act on the proposed Constitution of the United States. He ran as a Federalist and was elected to the House of Representatives in 1799. He became the Secretary of State under John Adams from June 6, 1800 to March 14, 1801. He was appointed by John Adams to be Chief Justice in 1801. Interesting facts. Marshall was in the Supreme Court for 34 years. Liberty Bell rang during his funeral procession. He delivered more than 1,000 decisions. He gave content to the Constitution's omissions, clarified its ambiguities, and added breathtaking sweep to the powers it conferred. He set the court on a course for ages to come that would make the U.S. government supreme in the federal system and the court the Constitution's expositor. He died on July 6, 1835, at the age of 79 years old. Supreme Court Case, Dennis v. United States. Involved in the case were petitioners Eugene Dennis, leader of the Communist Party, John B. Williamson, and others. Respondent was the United States. Advocates for the petitioners were Harry Satcher, George W. Crockett, and others. The case originated at the United States Court of Appeals for the 2nd District. The case was first argued on December 4, 1950, and decided on June 14, 1951. The case began when Eugene Dennis and other leaders of the Communist Party were arrested for advocating the violent overthrow of the United States government and violating the Smith Act. What happened in the case? Eugene Dennis, General Secretary of the American Communist Party, along with several other high-ranking communists, were arrested and convicted of having violated the Smith Act. The Smith Act made it a criminal offense to advocate the violent overthrow of the government, or to organize or be a member of any group or society devoted to such advocacy. It didn't help that the government was already worried of a communist takeover during this time. Why it went to the Supreme Court. The case was upheld by lower courts, despite the fact that no evidence existed that Dennis and his colleagues had encouraged any of their followers to commit specific violent acts, and was appealed to the Supreme Court, which agreed to hear the case. The party members who had been petitioning for socialist reforms also claimed that the act violated the First Amendment rights. Final decision. Dennis v. United States was decided on June 4, 1951, with a 6-2 ruling upholding the convictions, in essence finding that it was constitutional to restrict the guarantee of freedom of speech found in the U.S. Constitution's First Amendment when an individual's speech was so grave that it represented a vital threat to the security of the country. Many sided with the Supreme Court decision because even though the act of overthrowing the government was not yet in effect, the intent was still there. Therefore, government action is required. The ruling further maintained that the government need not wait to prohibit speech until the push is about to be executed, the plans have been laid, and the signal is awaited. If government is aware that a group aiming at its overthrow is attempting to indoctrinate its members and to commit them to a course whereby they will strike when the leaders feel the circumstances permit, action by the government is required. Most of the majority sided with the Supreme Court decision, but some argued the ruling. Felix Frankfurter, in particular, argued that Congress needed to balance free speech protections against the threat of that speech.